Welcome back to Fox Explainer. Today I'm going to show you a comedy, horror, and thriller movie from 2022 called Fresh. Spoilers ahead. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Watch out and take care. Noah is going out with Chad, who she met through a dating app. Even though things didn't look good at first, she's hoping it will work out because Chad reminded her to bring her own money to the date. But, as she expected, Chad turns out to be a pretty bad person. During their date, he keeps talking about himself and saying hurtful things about women. He also makes fun of Noah's appearance because she didn't dress up. At the end of the date, Chad asks her out again, but she says no. Chad doesn't like being turned down, so he insults Noah and leaves. He calls her snobby and says that she wasn't his type to begin with. During boxing class at the gym, Noah tells her best friend Molly about the bad date and how sad she is to be alone. Molly reassures her that she doesn't need a man. Even though the statement makes her feel better at the time, Noah keeps using dating apps when she gets home, but she still has no luck. Steve starts talking to her about cotton candy grapes when she sees him at the grocery store. But this was just Steve's bad attempt at making his shot. Nonetheless, Noah ends up giving him her number after he asks. The next day, Noah tells Molly right away about the chance meeting and says that she likes Steve. Molly jokes that Steve is probably married since Noah has said nice things about him. Even so, Noah is still worried that Steve hasn't texted her yet. On her way home, Steve asks her out to a bar for the night, which is what she was hoping for. They get to know each other better as they drink, and Noah finds out that Steve is a plastic surgeon. They end up staying the night together after the date because it goes so well. The next day, Noah calls Molly to tell her about what happened on her date. Molly gets curious after the conversation and wants to stalk Steve online, but Noah points out that he doesn't have any social media accounts. Molly tells her that's a warning sign. But Steve is too interesting to Noah for her to remember what was said. Before they hang up, Noah says that she remembers that night's bartender, who was someone Molly used to hook up with. Noah and Steve see each other again later that night. This time, though, they are just hanging out at Noah's apartment. Noah finds out while they are having takeout that Steve doesn't eat animals. Again, the night ends beautifully, and when Steve invites her on a surprise trip for the weekend, she doesn't hesitate to say yes. When she tells her best friend Molly about the trip, Molly gets worried right away because she doesn't even know where it is. Still, Noah likes Steve a lot, so she doesn't think too much about it. Steve picks up Noah for the trip. He tells her that they'll stay at his place and drive early the next day. He did this because he had already checked the traffic. When they get to his place, Noah is immediately impressed by how nice it is, and the fact that it's in the middle of nowhere doesn't bother her at all. Noah looks around and notices that there's no cell signal. Steve tells her that his Wi-Fi must have gone out. As they talk, Steve gives her a cocktail he made, which she drinks right away. Steve keeps talking about their weekend trip, but Noah starts to feel woozy. Even though she tries to fight the dizziness, she ends up passing out. When she wakes up, she is in a different room and Steve is sitting away from her. She asks what happened, and Steve says right away that he drugged Noah. At first, she thought he was kidding. However, when she tries to stand up, she sees that her hands are chained to the floor. She tries to beg Steve to take the handcuffs off, but he won't do it. She starts freaking out as Steve tries to talk to her, so he has to shout for her to listen. It turns out Steve sells human meat and plans to sell Noah's, but he sells the meat fresh, so he plans to keep her alive for as long as possible. When Steve leaves Noah's cell, she starts screaming for help and hears someone answer from the next room. She starts pleading for help, but the other girl, Penny, tells her that they are both in the same boat. Penny has no idea of time because she has been here longer, and she tells Noah that Steve's customers are slowly eating her away. On the other hand, Molly starts to feel off about Noah's condition. Even though Steve has been responding to her texts on Noah's phone, she is getting more and more suspicious of the conversation. When she couldn't find anything on Steve's vague background, she did a reverse search on the picture Steve sent from Noah's phone. Molly finds the image on Google, and it scares her that it's not a picture that Noah took. Meanwhile, Steve tries to get Noah to eat, but she won't touch her food. Even though he still tries to be nice to her, it doesn't work out well because of the situation. Noah asks to take a shower, so Steve walks her to the bathroom. But Noah has different plans, and as soon as they start walking down the hallway, she tries to get away. Out of anger, Steve knocks her out. Noah wakes up on an operating table. Steve tells her that this is her punishment for being bad. Noah finally gets to experience the full extent of Steve's cruelty when he takes her butt to sell. On the other hand, Molly visits Paul, the bartender who served Noah and Steve on their first date. She asks for Steve's ID, but Paul can't tell her because if he does, he might get fired. Molly goes, but she hopes that Paul will change his mind. Back in Noah's cell, she keeps talking to Penny about Steve. They find comfort in each other, so Noah says that she slept with Steve. This surprises Penny because she hasn't heard of any other victims who slept with him. Molly is still at work late at night when Paul sends her a text message agreeing to her request. As soon as she knows Steve's full name, she looks for him on Facebook and finds Anne, who is Steve's wife. He is, in fact, married and has 2 kids. The next day, Molly goes straight to their house to look for Noah. Just in case something goes wrong, she also sends Paul her location. Noah is still being held in her cell, but she is being kept busy with magazines. Steve comes to see her every now and then, but she never talks to him. But Penny's comment was bothering Noah, so she asks Steve why he slept with her. He tells Noah that it was a mistake for him to like her. Noah sees an note in the magazine as Steve is leaving. A previous victim wrote encouraging words between the pages, saying, "If you're reading this, it means he likes you. Use it." Noah takes the advice to heart and starts to like Steve. She even asks what it tastes like to eat a person. Steve answers her honestly, but he is curious about why Noah would even ask such a question. Still, he doesn't try to change it. On the other hand, Molly tells Anne, Steve's wife, about what is happening with Noah. Even though they sit down to talk about it, Anne doesn't believe that her husband would be cheating on her. Steve gets home and sees Anne and Molly together, but he stays calm. As they are sending her away, Molly calls Noah's phone, only to find that Steve has it. Now that her theory has been proven, the couple has no choice but to catch Molly, so Anne knocks her out from behind. When they get back to the cell, Steve goes right to Noah and asks her why she was so interested in the human meat. Steve invites Noah to dinner and even gives her a change of clothes, even though he thinks it's weird. Back at his own house, Steve tells Anne that work will keep him busy the next night. Then he praises Anne for being a good partner by killing Molly. Before he leaves, Steve asks about their kids and gives Anne a quick kiss. As Anne takes a shower, she takes off her clothes and shows off a fake leg. When it's time for them to eat together, Steve cooks a special dish for Noah, human meat. During a quiet time with a glass of wine, she asks Steve about his background and how he got into such a job. Steve tells a simple story about how he found something, saying that he got to try it once and got hooked on how good it tasted. After that, he found other people in the same situation as him, so he made a name for himself in the industry by delivering products to people who were willing to pay for them. Steve puts a meatball pasta on the table for them to eat. Noah forces herself to eat the meat, even though it came from a cruel place. Noah doesn't seem disgusted as she carefully chews it and swallows it. She even says that the taste is hard to describe. After he takes her back to her room, Steve goes to another prisoner's cell, Molly's, and does surgery on her too. Paul, on the other hand, has finally started to notice that something isn't right. He plans to go to the place Molly told him to go. On the other hand, Noah's plan seems to be working because Steve returns with a gift the next night. He gives her a beautiful dress and asks her again to dinner, which she agrees to. He even gives her some makeup so she can clean up before he leaves. Before they have a more romantic dinner with human meat again, the two get dressed up well. After the first course, Steve shows her a hidden shelf behind a painting where he keeps all of his victims' belongings and identification. Even a picture of Penny is in front of her. Steve tells her that her stuff is with him because she can't find it on the shelves. She writes down where the cell phones are and sees Molly's phone. She tries to act like it doesn't bother her, even though it does. As they eat the last course, Noah starts to cry because she feels bad that she doesn't feel bad about eating human meat. This makes Steve let down his guard and want to comfort her. Even though he kisses her, he still makes sure to handcuff her after dinner. After that, she asks him to dance with her. Because their date was so nice, they end up going to bed together. But Noah goes to the bathroom for a while first. When Noah comes back, she starts going down and acts like she's going to give him a head, but instead she bites off his groin. He screams out of the blue in pain, giving Noah a chance to put toothpaste on his eyes. She gets his keys and gets out of her handcuffs, then locks Steve in his own room. Noah runs for her life and goes straight to Molly, who is tied down and unable to speak. Before she comes to save Penny, who is missing a leg, she sets her free. Steve is following them, so the three try to get away while helping Penny. They catch him off guard in the kitchen and attack him together to get out of a bad situation. Even though Steve is fighting against three of them, he is doing well. But when he tried to hold Noah down, Penny came crawling up and stabbed Steve in the leg. In the end, Molly gives Steve a kick to the face that knocks him out. Noah makes sure to get their cell phones before they run when they get the chance. As the three of them run outside, Penny's missing leg makes it hard for them to keep up. Because of this, Steve manages to get behind them and now has a gun. Paul, on the other hand, just got to Steve's house, but something doesn't feel right. When he hears the gun, he backs out of the driveway and leaves right away. A short time later, Anne shows up. She had tried to get in touch with Steve but couldn't. She goes outside to find Steve after seeing the bloody remains of the fight in the kitchen and hearing Steve's gunshots. When Noah's phone rings, Steve goes outside to look for her. He finds her hiding in the trees. Molly sees this and doesn't think twice about taking Steve down to save her friend. Once he was on the ground, they all attacked him at once, until Noah shot him in the head with his own gun. They try to get away, but almost miss Anne. Anne finally finds Steve's dead body, but Noah goes back into the woods to look for her phone and leaves Penny with Molly. This time, Anne sees her, which is a shame. She acts like she is one of Steve's victims, but Noah doesn't believe her. Anne is still able to catch her. Noah stabs the woman in the neck with keys as she tries to choke her. Anne is still standing, though, and she throws Noah against a tree. But Molly comes to help her with a shovel and hits Anne's head over and over in anger. As they rest against a tree, Noah gets a text from Chad asking her if she's awake. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more and hit the like button to help me out, and also leave a comment if you want me to explain your favorite film. Until next time, take care.